people do what people see. So the reason vision works is it's visual. Leadership is visual. When people follow a leader, it's because they see that leader. When culture is established in a company, it's not established by the words that you say. It's by the actions that you do. So visual really works. In fact, Stanford research says 89% of everything you and I know, we learned it visually first. 10% audio, 1% through the other senses. So establishing a vision is just absolutely essential for the success of a company. However, in the leadership world that I live, what I try to help people understand, especially when you're talking about, Pat, starting something, building something up. In the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, I have the law of buy-in. And the law of buy-in just simply says people buy into the leader before they buy into the vision. And so when leaders come up to me, Pat, and they'll say something like, boy, John, I've got this great vision of something I would really like to build, this company I'd like to start. What do you think? What do you think? Do you think that people will gravitate to the vision? And I always stop them and I say, well, let me ask you the question. Have the people bought into you as a leader? You see, if they've bought into you as a leader, they're going to buy into the vision. If they haven't bought into you as a leader, they're really not going to buy the vision. So when people talk about vision, they talk about putting some kind of a preferred picture of the future out in front of the eyes of people for them to see that would motivate them. And I say, no, that comes second. There are two visions you've got to cast for your people. And the first vision isn't anything about what you want your company to be. The first vision is who you are. And if you are the right person, then they're ready to sit down and they're ready to enlarge their mind about the vision that you may have for them. But if they haven't really bought into you, then they're not going to buy in the vision. So whenever I talk about vision casting, I say there's a difference between a vision caster and a vision carrier. When they buy into me because I carry that vision. In other words, when they see John Maxwell, when they see Pat Flood, they see the vision. They already see it. Now, there is a vision. There is a preferred picture out there for that future, but they see you. They see me. So I always say that, it's you that you sell before it's the vision that you sell. And a lot of leaders, they miss it there. They just think, if I have a great vision, people will follow it. Well, they may like the vision, but if they don't like you, they're not going to follow you to it. So let's get ourselves in a sense in a state of credibility, because we have a way of making that vision talk to people every day and become personal every day and become achievable every day if they see it in us. If they don't see it in us, it's just not going to sell.
John, we've been a serial best place to work. And when I look at the data nationally with regard to people in the workplace, almost 90% of the people that go to work in America are either disengaged or actively disengaged, meaning they're going and they're doing something for 8 to 10 hours a day. They're getting a paycheck to do it. And then they're going home, which can't be good for whoever's at home when they get there, right? Because if they're disengaged, actively disengaged all day long, that doesn't mean there's joy being created. I've always thought, and we use two words here at Supreme more than anyone else, any other words. One is best. I've always thought that people, they want to be their best. So vision has to enroll them in something that we're all going to try to do together that is going to finish at being the best in whatever it is that we're going to do. Whether it's building a church or building a mortgage bank or building a real estate concern, there's no different. Why enroll or yourself, or why enroll someone else in something that's less than that when people fundamentally want something better? That's what they want to do. They want to get involved with something that actually is promising or hoping for a better tomorrow. So I appreciate the idea, because you always do talk about the individual that's leading it, because it has to have credibility, right? Is that what
Totally.
you're saying? That it has to have credibility. Whatever the vision is, the person that's leading it has to be credible.
Yeah. It goes back, Pat, to show and tell. In the beginning, you have nothing to show. In other words, the dream that you have within you, or the vision you have, you don't have the facility to show. You don't have the results. I remember, in what was it, 1997, when I started Equip, I said we want to train leaders around the world. Well, that's a wonderful statement, but I didn't have anybody to point to. I didn't have anybody say, now look, we've trained 60,000 people here, and I had nothing. I just had a vision. That's why the buy-in is essential. There's nothing to show. So they have to buy into you and believe that you have credibility as a leader to pull it off before they buy into that vision. So, it's what John Wooden used to tell his basketball players: don't tell me what you're going to do, show me what you're going to do. Well, the credibility of a leader isn't what he or she says. The credibility of a leader is what he or she does. And so it's so key for me to live that vision and become credible and believable and have people borrow my vision until they can see it be a reality, but they borrow it because of me. Kouzes and Posner, in their book, The Leadership Challenge, which is a phenomenal book, by the way, what they say is that great leaders take the vision from me to we. And so go back to, they have to buy into the leader before they buy the vision. But then there's another important part that most people miss again. Again, we take the vision and almost make it like paramount. Like, oh, if you just have a great vision, you can build a great company. And that's just not true. It's not true. Let's talk about me to we for just a moment. Well, what that means is that there has to be a transition in any company where people quit talking about our founder's vision, or this is what John Maxwell has shared. This is where he says we're going. And you know that you're making great progress on the vision when the people start talking about our vision, and this is what we're doing together, and this is where we're going, and we're very excited about this next step in our journey. Now, all of a sudden, you're hearing conversation of buy-in. They not only have bought into you, but they've bought into the vision. But how does that happen? That happens by giving people a piece of the action. And again, I think this is where the big miss is. When I was a young leader, this was a big miss for me. I thought, man, I've just got to get this perfect vision, and I lay it out, and the people will just respond, and here we go. Well, what I didn't understand was that they didn't want to follow my vision. They wanted to follow their vision. And I learned over years that if I take my vision and then sit down with them and I ask them a very simple question, help me make it better. Help me make it better. Here's what I think, and here's what I see. But let's talk about it. And this is powerful. I can tell you, I've done this so many times. This is powerful. I sit down with you, Pat, maybe there's 7 of us around the table. And I say, well, okay, let me share with you what I'm thinking. Let me share with you what I'm seeing. And I need you to help me. By the way, one of the most important phrases a leader can ever tell their team is, I need you to help me. This is, you see, most leaders, they kind of come in and here I am to save the day and I'm here to help you. It's powerful when I walk in my people and say, I need you to help me. That's not where, here's what I know. It's good, but it's not great yet. But you're going to help me make it great. So let's talk about it. Now, this is what I talk about when I talk about shared vision, creatively coming together and putting together. Shared thinking is huge. If you have a good idea and I have a good idea, we have 2 ideas. But if you don't share it with me and I don't share it with you, I still only have 1 idea. So the first thing is we got to get it on the table and we have to share it. But now watch happens. If you have a good idea and I have a good idea and we begin to share that good idea, guess what? Pretty soon we get 3 ideas, because what happens is it's in the sharing that ideas multiply. Ideas are never great in the beginning. I mean, good Lord, they have to be developed. So a great idea is a combination of several good ideas put together. And then all of a sudden you have a great idea. So around the room, Pat, I get all of you in the room and I say, here's what I'm thinking, here's what I'm seeing. Make it better for me. If I've done this once, I've done it 1,000 times. And if I've done it once and asked people to help me, 1,000 times they've helped me. I have never left the room with the original thought I had that didn't have better perspective and better content in it. Every time I ask people to help me, they help me, and it gets better. Now, all of a sudden, when I walk out of the room, it isn't my vision. It's not my idea. It's our idea. And that's where ownership goes. Does that make sense, Pat?
It makes a total sense, because then everyone owns responsibility for the vision actually taking place, right? And they own responsibility for us to get to where we want to go. You know, when you were mentioning equip, this is just, you know, how you're wired, but the idea you want to train leaders around the world, and you're just getting a business started, right? That's bold and audacious, and yet it's simple and it's brilliance, because you had something that the world needed, and you had a heart, and you had the wisdom to be able to know that leadership was going to be the catalyst for success for organizations, good and not so good. I remember at the time when I met you, we were one of your first clients at Equip, because we were interviewing companies like Gallup and Covey about their leadership programs. And they certainly are all good programs, but I kept getting this feeling that it wasn't going to turn my people, because the question I would ask is, if my people participate in this program, what will they become?
Yeah, sure.
And then you all answered that question in a simple way. And obviously, since Equip got started, you have changed the world. In fact, I'm looking at your book right now. It says "Change the World," right? So an awful lot has happened since that early period of time.
Pat, can I say one other thing, Pat?
Sure.
Because you're opening up my mind with your questions, which are always good. I love being with you. I have another teaching I do called Action Attraction. And it's a very simple teaching, but the teaching is very powerful. And that is, sometimes we expect the vision to do the work for us. So we get clarity as far as here's what we want to accomplish, and we put the dream on the refrigerator or whatever it is, and then we wait for that dream to work. And what people miss is the fact that you have to take action on whatever that vision is. You can't allow the vision to do the work. You have to do the work of the vision. So in Action Attraction, here's what happens. I have to start moving. Now, the challenge for people on vision and movement is the fact that in the beginning, you don't see everything. I'm always very clear to let my people know, here's what I see. But I want you to know what I see isn't the total picture. But the only way I'm going to get the better picture, and the only way I'm going to get the bigger picture, is to start moving. So I move without all the answers. I move without having, quote, perfect planning, but I move. Because here's what happens. When I know who I am and when I know what I want to accomplish, and I start moving on that, it's the action, it's the movement that begins to attract people to me. So here's what happens. I start moving, and all of a sudden I attract resources, I attract people, I attract opportunities, all the things that if I stood still and said, boy, I hope this vision becomes true, or boy, I hope this dream becomes a reality in my life. And I always say, well, the dream's free, but the journey isn't. So, so let's get moving here. Let's get moving. And I think so many times we don't move. And people say, well, I don't have all the answers. Well, you'll never move if you have all the answers. Where you find the answer, moving is how you find the answer. So you plan well, you think on the front end. I'm not anti any of that, but you have to move. And all of a sudden, when you start moving, the picture starts open. So when I said, we're going to train 1 million leaders in the world, people said, well, how are you going to do that? Well, I said, now there are 2 or 3 things I know we're going to do. And they looked at me and they said, is that enough? I said, no. I said, it's not enough. But when we start moving, it'll become enough. Because we'll attract more people, we'll attract more trainers, we'll attract more money. It'll all come, but you have to move on the vision. And to kind of just wait for the vision to make your day is a huge mistake.
We both know Marcy Fair, and I was at an event with her just last week, and it was for Cares for Kids, and it was a celebratory event about the achievements of her vision, and her vision was really just to help children, right? And they came out to start with, hey, we'd like to help 500 children, and they got moving, and then it got to 5,000. And then it got to 100,000, and we just celebrated as a group all of those that got on board, enrolled in her vision. We just celebrated them touching the lives of 500,000 children. And now, they've raised the number. Marcy said, now that we've gotten there, we need to. And of course, everyone now realizes what's possible. But I just heard all of that you talked about. Marcy had a important mission in mind, vision in mind, which was to help kids. And then she enrolled people in it because of who she is. And then they got moving, and she was just telling the stories of how many different things that have happened since then that they didn't foretell, that they didn't have as a part of their plan, just like you just described, because they were on the move, but they were doing something really exceptional, and that is they were helping children. I think sometimes the vision is about getting something. And what I heard you talk about, the vision for was giving something, giving the world and its leaders better insights about how to do their work better so that they could impact the people that they were actually leading. Marcy, very similar. And it was a blessing last week to be there. I want to ask you about now, so that's where we're going, vision, and it's important. And thank you for your insights on it, because they're, like always, they're just brilliant. I want to talk about mission, because the way we look at it is the vision is where we're going. The mission is kind of how we're going to get there. Like, what is it that's going to get us to that place that we all want to go? And our mission statement at Supreme is really simple, but we think it affects every part of life, which is serving others before self. Because it's our belief, we talked about best, the vision of becoming the best. We believe that if you live a selfless life, if you live a life at home, in the workplace, everywhere, where you're putting other people and their needs in front of your own, and you're it's not natural, but it leads to best. We think it unlocks best. So our mission statement here is serving others before self. Give us your thoughts on mission statements, the how, if you will, the organization will kind of stay centered on its values.
Well, they're essential, as you know, and they have different responsibilities. They do two different things for us. I often say that vision, that is the eyes of an organization. That's what we see. I've always felt that mission is the soul of the organization, and I think that it's from the soul that we receive our energy. It's from the soul that we explain and know why we are doing something and why we are so committed to it. I think mission is essential, and here's why. I'm going to use, because I'm a person of faith, and by the way, I loved your Marcy Fair illustration. Her and Brian are great people, and I mean, but there's an example of a lady who said, I want to help kids, and she just started. And if you ask Marcy today, 500,000 kids later, if she ever planned on this, she would say, I planned on helping people. I didn't know I would be able to help that many. And that's the beauty of vision. And when we think of mission, I think it's easy to get distracted with vision. I think mission calls for commitment more than vision does. And so I like to see people get to the mission stage of their life, the why that they're doing what they're doing, because I think that is core to the tenacity and the commitment of making sure that mission and vision come to fruition. And so because I'm a person of faith, I can use this illustration. And that is, in the story of Nehemiah when he was building a wall in Jerusalem. And he had distractors. He had people saying, "Hey, you know what I mean? This isn't going." He had a lot of opposition.
Ballot, Tobias.
Yeah, hey, you can go teach.
I know those guys. Yeah.
Pat, yeah. They come and see me often. Do they see you often too? And all they are is distractors. Every time you have a meeting with them, they're going to get you off course. Every time you have a meeting with him, they're going to try to move you off of mission. And I love Nehemiah. They're ready to have their meeting. They're down there on the ground, and they're yelling up to Nehemiah, "Hey, we're ready to have our meeting." And Nehemiah said, "No, you don't understand. I'm building a wall, and I cannot come down." In other words, his mission was so great that it allowed him to override the distractions of other people. Now, this is huge. I hope I can do a good job in the next 3 minutes, because this is going to give the people that are with you in this great time together, this is going to give them some food. Several years ago, I was writing a book, Pat, and it was a book on how to reach your dreams. Okay. And I tried 2 times to write the book, and I both times stopped because it wasn't going where I wanted it to go, which, sometimes that happens when I write. It just isn't what I wanted. And the reason I stopped was because both times I thought, this is too hypey. This is kind of too raw. And I don't want that to be in my dream book. And so I pulled away. So the third time, I said, I'm going to try it again. But the third time, I found the foundation I needed to build on this book on, and here it is. How many times do we see people with a dream, a mission, a vision, and they get started, and then they stop, and they quit, and you guys say, okay, what happened here? What happened? I mean, was it not a good dream? Was it not a worthy vision? And almost always, yeah, it was a very good dream. It was a very worthy vision. It hit me when I wrote this book. Don't miss this. The more valid reasons I have to achieve a dream, a vision, accomplish a mission, don't miss this. The more valid reasons I have to achieve it, the higher the odds are that I will. And all of a sudden it hit me. If I only have one reason to be on this mission, if I only have one reason to go for that vision, life will knock it out of me. Trust me, it's only a matter of time until they're going to be hollering and saying, come down off the wall. Okay. So how do I keep from being distracted? How do I keep from getting off of the rails when I'm doing something that would really make a difference in people's life? And the answer is very simple. The more reasons I have to accomplish the vision, the more reasons I have to stay on mission, the higher the odds are that I will. So if I only have one, I'll get knocked off. But what happens if I have a half a dozen reasons to get there? Now, all of a sudden, when I start getting knocked around, okay, I lost that one, but I still got 4 other reasons why I need to be doing this. And so what I tell people is, I want the vision to be clear. I want the mission to be in your soul. But let me explain something to you. You better figure out why you want to go there. Because until you figure out why you want to go there and you get some reasons stacked up and lined up, you're going to get off track. You aren't going to make it. So like in that book, Put Your Dream to the Test, I came up with 10 good, valid reasons to achieve your dream. And so, I did it with questions, but I put it in a book. And I basically just said, let's go through these, put your dream to the test, put your vision to the test, put your mission to the test. And I found it to be very successful. And in our conversation today, Pat, I'm here to say, I want the dream, I want the vision to be clear. I want the mission to be felt. I got it. But you better figure out how many reasons you've got to get there. Because when people talk to me about the things that I've accomplished in my life, I can give you a half a dozen reasons why I'm on this course. Not just one, not just 2. And so therefore, I'll get a few knocked out of me on the way, but they can't knock all of them out. By the time they knock all 6 or 7 out from under me, I'm already there. Today I want to talk to you about one of the attributes and contributions that leaders give other people, and that's what makes leadership so important. I would like to talk to you about the fact that leaders lift others. In other words, wherever you see a leader, the people around that leader will always go to higher ground. My friend Johnny Cash, in our time of mentoring and just talking together, constantly brings up to me in my mentoring time with him, John, I have a great desire to help other people, and I want to make their lives better for them. And he works really hard at that. And it's one of the things I greatly appreciate about him. Every time I look into his heart is to lift up other leaders. Now, we've heard the expression that it's lonely at the top. But I've always said that a good leader never says that, because think about it for a moment. If you're at the top all by yourself, you didn't lift anybody. You didn't bring anybody to the top with you. In fact, if you're only at the top by yourself, you're really not a leader. Honestly, you're just a hiker. Leaders lift other people. Recently, I was doing a lesson on fulfillment, because there are so many people, instead of living a fulfilling life, they lead and live an empty life. And I was trying to distinguish the difference between what is emptiness in a person's life and what makes them feel empty, and what is fulfilling in a person's life and what brings great joy and fulfillment to them. In that lesson, I was talking about that people that live a fulfilling life, they value people and they add value to those people. Now, that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying lifting others. If you as a leader value people and you add value to people, trust me, my friend, without any doubt, you will lift other people. I have spent my life doing that exact thing. In fact, the other day I had someone come and ask me, tell me, they said, a little bit about your journey. How did this happen that you began to be what I would call a leader that lifted other people? Well, honestly, at 75, it's easy for me to understand my life as I look backwards. It was Steve Jobs who said, when we look forward, it's hard to connect the dots, but when we look backwards, then it just is kind of natural to see how things just fell in place. In my life, back in 1973, I went to a convention in Waterloo, Iowa, and I heard Charles Tremendous Jones, and he said that I would be the same person I was in 5 years unless I met new people and I read more books. In other words, Charles Tremendous Jones said to me that the people I associate with and the books that I read are going to determine how successful I will be in life. And from that very moment, I determined that I was going to be around great people and I was going to help people become great. I've often said that when you have a great dream and you have a great team, then all of a sudden you can realize everything that you want to accomplish. Now, I've known those who had a big dream and a bad team, and that's a nightmare. So how did I lift up people? How do you lift up others as leaders? I'm going to share with you now some material, some thoughts that really I've never shared with other people before. This is for you. This is for your training. This is for your growth. This is for your development. This is to help you to be a leader that lifts up other people. So how do we do this? How do I lift others? How do you lift others? Number one, I think to lift other people, it starts with you. I think you have to have a desire to become great. You have to have a desire inside of you to do great things. I can still remember as a very young leader in my 20s, I came to the conclusion that I wanted to make a difference. I really did. That I wanted to make a difference in my life. I wanted to make a difference in your life. I wanted to make a difference in the people's lives around me. And I had this desire. It was a passion of mine. Napoleon Hill said, the starting point of all achievement is desire. I believe that with all of my heart. I have found that great people, great leaders, you don't have to motivate them. You don't have to say, hey, get up, get out of bed, get into the game. They already have that passion. They already have that desire. And I did. And so because I had this great desire, this desire to be great, I went to one of my mentors. His name was Elmer. I call him affectionately E.T. He's still alive. He's older than me. He's 90 years old. But he has been a friend and a mentor for many, many years of my life. And so I'm very, very young. I'm in my 20s, and I go to E.T. and I ask him, how do I become great? What he said to me that day was life-changing. And for, 50 years of my life, I've been following those words. Here's what he said. If you want to become great, go to great events. Seek out great people. Ask great questions. Read great books. Find great mentors. And then he said, above all, attempt to do great things. When E.T. told me that 50 years ago, I marked those words. I said, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to great events. I'm going to seek out great people. I'm going to ask great questions. I'm going to read great books. I'm going to find great mentors in my life, and I'm going to attempt to do great things. If you want to lift others, the first thing you want to do is just have a desire inside of you to be great. The second characteristic I think that you need to possess is you need to do what my mentor Elmer Towns told me to do as a very young leader. Go to where great people go. Wow. I have discovered that this is the secret to having a faster pace on my success journey. My mama used to talk to me and say, John, birds of a feather flock together. Average people hang with average people. People that are successful hang with people that are successful. My father knew that. And as I was growing up, he took time to introduce me to great people. Wow. I was in the 7th grade when he took me to meet his long-distance mentor himself, Norman Vincent Peale, who wrote the great book, The Power of Positive Thinking. In Columbus, Ohio, 7th grader, I met Norman Vincent Peale. When I was in the 11th grade, I met E. Stanley Jones, another great man, a great missionary, a friend of Gandhi's, a man that influenced the world, a great writer. Elmer Towns, my mentor, said and taught me at a young age what he called the hot poker principle. The hot poker principle is just very simple. If you have a fire in the fireplace, if you put the poker in the fire or by the fire, it's only a matter of time till it gets hot. If you remove the poker away from the fire, it's only a matter of time till it gets cold. And Elmer said, John, get around hot people, get around great people so you can stay hot, so you can stay passionate. That's exactly what I have done. When I was in my late 20s, I wrote a lesson that has been life-changing for many people about how to create a growth environment. In it, I just simply say, listen carefully, a growth environment is a place where others are ahead of you, where you're continually challenged, where your focus is forward, where the atmosphere is affirming, where you're often out of your comfort zone, where you wake up excited, where failure is not your enemy, where others are growing, where people desire change, and where growth is modeled and expected. Those are the 10 things that make a great growth environment. The other day, when I was preparing this lesson for you, I was looking at those characteristics of a growth environment, and all of a sudden it hit me. 5 of the 10 very essential items to have a growth environment in your life are having great people around you. Others are ahead of you. The atmosphere is affirming. Others are growing. People desire change. Growth is modeled and expected. 5 out of the 10 are specifically about great people. Mark Cole, the CEO of my companies, calls it the power of proximity. He talks about the fact that if you really want to do something great, you've got to be around great people, because there is a contagiousness that happens when you're around those type of people. And so I've looked at myself and I've asked myself many times, how did I become great? And I'd have to say, without any doubt, I not only had a desire to be great, but I put myself around great people. And again, that's what's so exciting to me about this program, because you're in these lessons, you're going to be exposed to great people who have great ideas and great thinking that can really help you to become great. In my early years, when I was very young, inexperienced, and not known at all as a leader, my mentors were my books. Back then, we didn't have all the incredible technology that you have today. But I was mentored from afar by books or by tapes that I could listen to. So, if you really want to lift others up, you have to have a desire to be great, and you have to go where the great people go. Where are the great people? Thirdly, if you really want to be great and be a leader that can lift others, you have to do what great people do. Again, many times we look at great people and we say, wow, I would like to have that title. I'd like to have that position. I'd like to have that money. I'd like to have that influence. And we don't realize that all those things that we want are a result of what great people do every day. The things that we don't even see, the behind the scenes, the hidden disciplines that keep people doing the great things every day so that their greatness shows when they're out in public. A book that I grew up on and was mentored on was Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. And when people talk to me about doing what great people do, I say, go to that book. And I would suggest you need, if you haven't, you need to read that book. And if you have read the book, you need to practice the 7 habits that Stephen Covey talks about, the things that you have to do to be great. What did he say? He said, number 1, be proactive. In other words, take action. There is no success, none, without action. Nobody ever reflected their way to success. Nobody ever thought their way to success. Nobody ever hoped their way to success. No one with good intentions ever had success. It takes action. Action is always associated with success. Be proactive. Number 2, begin with the end in mind. This is all about intentionality. This is all about seeing the big picture. This is all about don't do something stupid today that'll mess up the long-term journey of your life. Everything that you do, look at your dream, look at your goal, do everything with the end in mind. The third thing that Stephen Covey suggests that we do is to put first things first. In other words, prioritize your life. All leaders know activity is not necessarily accomplishment. I know a lot of busy, hardworking people that are not successful at all. So what we have to do is we have to say, what's the most important? Put first things first. Don't put first things last. Hey, put last things last. Put first things first. Number 4, Stephen Covey says, think win-win. I have lived my life following that principle. If I'm going to work with you, I'm going to ask myself a simple question. What is the win for you and what's the win for me? I never get into any relationship where I win and you're going to lose. Or I'm not going to get in a relationship where you're going to win and I'm going to lose. No, I'm going to get into a relationship where together we both are better. Together, we both win. The fifth thing that Stephen Covey talked about that was so effective is he said, seek first to understand, then to be understood. He talked about listening. He talked about caring for people in such a way that you allow them to tell their story. and you listen and care and are attentively drawing their story out. In other words, if I understand you well, you'll have a desire, because I listen and care, to understand me. But I must, again, as a leader, I must go first. So many times leaders, they just want to be understood. They want to make sure that they got their vision out, they got their directions out, and it's kind of, now listen to me, listen to me, listen to me. But if you really want to lift others and you really want to grow in this area, you don't start with yourself. You start with your people and say, okay, tell me your story. What are your dreams? What is it in your life that you would really like to do that would make a difference in people's life? I love those words. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. The sixth thing that Stephen Covey talks about that is so important for us to, again, be leaders who do what great people do is he talks about synergizing. And if you really read the chapter, it's really about teamwork. It's about coming together. It's what Mother Teresa said when she said, you can do things I cannot do. I can do things you cannot do, and together we can do great things. Synergizing means that we come together as a team. One is too small of a number to achieve greatness. When we synergize, we lead people in a desired vision, but we do it together as a team. The last thing that Stephen Covey said is sharpen the saw. In other words, develop yourself personally. When he said sharpen the saw, he's talking about cutting down trees, and you all know that if I don't stop long enough to sharpen the saw, if it's not the best instrument I can possibly use to cut that lumber, it's not going to cut very well. And so we have to constantly keep sharp. We have to constantly grow. We have to constantly learn. We have to constantly improve our life. Okay, we're talking about how do we become leaders that lift others? And we've talked about so far three things. We've talked about how important it is for us to have a desire to be great. We have talked about go where great people go, and then do what great people do. Now I'm going to talk to you about number 4, be unforgettable. Be unforgettable. My friend Jack Welch used to talk about getting out of the people pile. You see, in every organization, there are just a lot of people. So how do you and I distinguish ourselves? I mean, how do we get out of the people pile until they see us and they notice us? And what I want to share with you today is something that's very important, and it's just life-changing. If you want to get out of the people pile, just commit your life to living a life beyond expectations. I want you to exceed expectations. I want you to set your bar, your personal bar, your productivity bar, your life conduct bar. I want you to set it high. You see, only 15% of the people in life even meet expectations. So this people pile, it's just got a whole bunch of people that are just average. And 15% exceed expectations or meet expectations. And of those 15% that meet expectations, only 2% exceed expectations. So I want to encourage you in your life to live a life that says, I exceed the expectations of other people around me. In fact, the way I look at it is this. When I'm getting ready to speak for a company, I do a pre-conference call, and one of the questions I ask them is, what are your expectations of me? What do you want to see happen when I come and speak for you? And they tell me, and I write it down. Now, when they give that to me, I look at what I wrote down, and those expectations they have of me, that's not my ceiling. That's my floor. I stand on that. I make sure that's going to be done. Now I ask myself the question, how am I going to exceed expectations? How am I going to be so unforgettable that I'm irreplaceable. And they look and they say, I got to have John back because he truly does make a difference in my life. How am I going to do that? Let's review just for a second. For me to be a leader that can lift other people, I have to have a great desire to be great. I have to go where great people go, do what great people do. I have to be unforgettable, exceed those expectations. And number 5, I have to be greater on the inside than I am on the outside. Wow, this is huge. You see, when we look at successful people, what we normally do is we see what they have accomplished, the tangible things on the outside. But I am here to tell you that greatness begins on the inside first. My wonderful friend, Truett Cathy, was the founder of Chick-fil-A, this incredible, best company to work for in America restaurant chain. When Chick-fil-A was just kind of starting to get momentum, the people around him said, we need to get bigger, we need to get bigger. And Truett Cathy said, no. He said, we need to get better. He said, when we get better, when we improve ourselves, when we get better, the people, the customers, the clients, they'll insist that we get bigger. Our job is to be big on the inside. Our job is to be greater on the inside than we are on the outside. And so what does that mean? Well, that means that I'll be different than most people. For example, many people live a life of scarcity. I live a life of abundance. Most people, in relationships with others, they either take the low road or the middle road. They either kind of, well, if you'll treat me good, I treat you good. You treat me bad, I'll treat you bad. I take the high road. You see, I take the road where if you treat me bad, I'll still treat you good. I will always be bigger in my spirit and my attitude than you. Trust me. I was talking about high road the other day, and a person came up to me at the conference and said, the high road is a toll road, but the price is worth it. When they said that to me, I thought how true that is. I am always going to treat people better than they treat me. I'm always going to live a life of abundance, not scarcity. And I'm going to choose sowing over reaping. I'm always going to sow seeds of goodness into people's life. You see, most people, they get up and they look at life in that day and they say, I wonder what life is going to bring to me today. I wonder what it's going to give me. I wonder what I'm going to get out of life. That's how they think. I never think about reaping. I always think about sowing. In fact, the success of my day is determined by the seeds I sow, not by the harvest that I want to reap. So I'm going to constantly do more for others than they do for myself. I'm going to constantly be greater on the inside than I'm on the outside. Now I'm preparing you. All the things I've given you, I'm preparing you to lift other people. So number 6, live out your great vision. Now, what I mean by living out your great vision, it's one thing to tell others about your vision, but it's another thing to show others your vision. When I tell you my vision, I'm a vision caster. But when I show you my vision, I become a vision character. And when I can show and tell my vision, I become what I call a vision champion. And great people are attracted by great success. So my credibility as a leader isn't what I say I can do, it's what I actually do. So what I do is I bring people with me, the people that I'm mentoring, the people that I'm leading and lifting. I take them with me. I take them with me to have leadership experiences. I say, come and be with me and watch this and observe this. This begins absolutely life-changing. When a person sees the vision that you have created, They buy into it so quickly because now they get to be a participant of that vision. Now I get to the very essence of this lesson. If you want to lift others, you've got to develop great people. When people ask me at 75, what is the number one reason for my success? It's very obvious. I have developed great people in my life. And there are two principles for developing great people. And those two principles are, number one, growth requires people development. I have to spend time developing people. Growing organizations grow people. So growing leaders is at the top of my agenda. And personal development, my own personal growth, precedes the development of others. Here we go, perspective principles. How we view things is how we do things. I'm going to give you, I'll give you probably maybe 3 now, and then tomorrow I'm going to give you 8, okay? So I think there are about 11 perspective principles. So don't miss what I'm going to give you tomorrow, but I'm going to give you 3 right now. Number 1, everything worthwhile is uphill. If you've heard me do any teaching at all, because I wrote a book called Intentional Living, you've watched me use the visualization of everything is worthwhile, it's uphill, and I put my arm in the air, and I just basically say, up at the top are my dreams, my hopes, my ambitions, my desires. Everything good, it's up there. It's not down here. I got to climb to get it. Now, when I say everything worthwhile is uphill, let me tell you the difference between in average times and in crisis times. In average times, everything worthwhile is uphill. And during times of crisis, everything worthwhile is uphill. It's just a higher hill to climb. But we still can climb it. You see, we are not given an overcoming life. We are giving life to overcome. There's a world of difference. I'm not entitled to winning. I'm not entitled to have an overcoming life, but I am entitled to having a life of which I can choose to be an overcomer. You see, there's a wrong perspective, and the wrong perspective is that life should be easy. I'm telling you, my name is John, I'm your friend. Life's not easy. It's all uphill. Always has been, always will be. The problem is we have uphill hopes, we have downhill habits. And downhill isn't going to get us where we want to get. So, I could give you all kind of examples. People hear me speak. I'm talking to you now. And people say, John, you're a terrific communicator. Well, I wasn't always a terrific communicator. This wasn't easy. First of all, let me give you perspective. I've spoken 12,000 times. Talk to me for a moment. If you speak 12,000 times and you don't become a great communicator, you chose the wrong field. 12,000 times. It's uphill all the way. The first time I spoke, it was terrible. Spoke for 55 minutes. I bored everybody. In fact, I went back the next year and apologized to the people that I had bored, and then I realized none of those people would ever come back to hear me the second time because I was so bad the first time. I wasn't any good. I wish you could have seen me then. If you could have seen me when I started, every one of you would be greatly encouraged. What am I saying? I'm saying very simply that it took a great amount of time, effort, energy, focus, concentration, commitment to become a great communicator. It's all uphill. Writing, it wasn't easy. Over 34 million books have been sold through my name and my writing. People say, wow, that's amazing, that's amazing. No, you got to understand, it was all uphill. My first book, Think on These Things, I talked about a little bit ago, 100 pages, 33 chapters. Do the math. That's 3 pages per chapter. It took me a year to write the book. I wasn't any good at it. The book's not any good. Don't buy the book. I had a lady the other day bought the book. She came up to me to sign it, and I was shocked. She said, I love the book. I said, you love the book? Why do you love that book? She said, I love the short chapters. She said, how did you ever think of writing short chapters? I said, lady, I wasn't any good. I ran out of gas after 3 pages. In fact, some of those chapters are 2 pages too long. It literally took me 5 books to learn how to write. Literally. And I took writing courses. I had writing mentoring. It took me 5 books before I said, oh, I can write. And it took me 11 books before I ever sold much. Now, It was a process. Now, I don't want you to miss this. Everything worthwhile is uphill. Nothing comes fast. Nothing comes easy. It's all uphill. It's okay. We're working on perspective here. The moment I believe and accept that everything worthwhile is uphill, guess what I do? I expect to walk uphill all the time. If I don't believe that, I expect it to be easy. I expect it to be average. I expect to coast some. You see, my perspective that it's uphill every day, all the way, is huge. We have John Maxwell Team. Okay, here's a perfect example of this. We got the John Maxwell Team, and we've had huge success with it. I mean, in what, 9.5 years, 33,000 members in almost every country of the world. And people look at that and they say, "Oh my gosh, John, this is huge." How did you get so good? How did you pull that off? It was uphill all the way. Now let me just stop for a moment and just say to you that I'm constantly asking myself, what can I do to add value to you? Because here's what I know. A crisis never leaves you or me the same. It moves us. It either moves us forward or it moves us backward. It either moves us upward or we go down. But it does move us. And we're saying, "Oh, I can hardly wait for things to get back to normal." I hear that all the time. "Oh my gosh, won't you be glad when this is all over?" And wow, things will become normal. And oh, this will be so good. Can I tell you something? They're never going to return back to normal. Not the normal that you and I know. Trust me. There's never going to be that normal again. It's just like 9/11. After 9/11, we didn't go back to normal. I mean, every day almost I'm reminded of 9/11 through something that you or I have to do just because of safety precautions. So Max Dupree, when he said the first responsibility of a leader is to define reality, the reality is very simple, and that is that normal is gone and there's going to be massive change. Well, if the first responsibility for me is to define reality to you, my second responsibility for you is to help you make positive changes. Huge. And how do we do that? Well, I've been through a lot of changes. I've been through a lot of crisis. I'm 73. So in the 60s, I saw the assassination of some of our great leaders, John Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy, Martin Luther King. In the 70s, it was Vietnam and the incredible bitter taste that we had over political manipulation. In the 80s, we had AIDS, that for 2 years we were just trying to identify a virus, and we also had economic recession back then. In the 1990s, remember Enron and corporate undoing, and we were just kind of had lost our way ethically in that whole process. 9/11, of course, and then the 2008 recession. Now, here's what I want you to know. When things get out of control, what leaders do is they try to help people get back into control of their lives. And how do I do that? As a leader, how do I help you get back into control of your life? Well, you can control your own personal decisions. And a decision that I would hope that you would make during this crisis is a decision to personally develop and grow yourself. You see, the only guarantee that tomorrow is going to be better than today is the fact that I'm growing and I'm developing myself. I'm 73, but I'm so excited about my future because to me, I'm continually learning, I'm continually growing. There is no finish line in my life. And so how do we continue to grow? How do we continue improving ourselves? After the 2008 financial recession, I began to ask myself, how do I help other people? And I came to the conclusion back then that I was going to start the John Maxwell Team. I didn't need another business. I already was quite successful in life. I had basically everything I wanted in my life. But I said, what would happen if I took people that wanted to better themselves? What would happen if I took people who wanted to better themselves? And what they need is they need good training. They need some people to good mentoring. And then what they need is somebody to put their good housekeeping seal of approval on them and say, hey, look, this person's a good person. And give them an opportunity and give them a chance. So that's why I started the John Maxwell Team. And we have basically 5 lanes. We have the leadership lane. We have the entrepreneurship lane. We got the sales lane. We got the coaching lane. We got the speaking lane. And what we knew is if we could teach you these 5 lanes, you're going to find out which lane you best identify with, but we can greatly improve your life. So then I got a dream team. I got my faculty together, and I got people that were highly successful. I mean, people that were doing it now, not people who had done it or had never done it and were, quote, professors. but people that were right in the action. They knew how to build a business, and they knew how to be successful with their life. And so I brought a faculty on, and then I said, I'm going to certify people. I'm going to put the John Maxwell, seal of approval on them, and I'm going to certify them after they go through this certification process. And with that, I'm going to give them credibility. I'm going to give them opportunity. And I can tell you today, over 33,000 coaches around the world, and I can tell you my greatest joy is everywhere I travel, internationally, nationally, everywhere I travel. Here's what happens. I see John Maxwell team members totally fulfilled because now they have a purpose and mission in life, and that is to add value to people. Because John Maxwell team members, we tell them all the time, we are people of value who value people and add value to people. So just I'm going to go to the next perspective in just a moment, but just a few questions. Questions such as, do you want to take adversity and turn it around and make, an advantage, an opportunity out of it? Do you want more for yourself? Do you want more for your family? Maybe you're saying, boy, there is no new normal. I'm going to go back. I'm sure I'm going to have a job. Would you like to be an entrepreneur? Would you like us to help you we've had thousands of people now that have an incredible career of adding value to people, and we equip them and train them and certify them, or maybe you want to subsidize some income and say, wow, I'm not sure I'm going to have enough when this is through. I'm going to be behind financially, all of those things. But the most important question for you is just very simple. Most important question is this one. Would you like to be part of a community that's making a positive difference in the lives of other people? That's the question. If that question resonates with your heart, and by the way, a whole bunch of you're already doing great things. You don't need to be part of a John Maxwell. This is just for the few who say, wow, yeah, I'd like to be part of a community that's making a positive difference. If that's where you are, I just say to you, I want you to stand on my shoulders. I'll walk alongside of you. I'll certify you. I'll do everything I can to add value to you. And if the answer is yes, then I would just encourage you to think about becoming a part of the team. Now, I'm getting ready to go to that second perspective, which is huge. But now all of a sudden, as I'm thinking about becoming a part of team, Mark, I'm going to need you to help me for a moment. If they become a part of the team, if they want to become part of a John Maxwell team, tell them what to do real quickly, because then I want to get to the next perspective.
Yeah, if you just would want more information, John, they can go to johnmaxwellteam.com. johnmaxwellteam.com. There's a form you'll fill out. One of our team will connect with you on that.
Okay. Again, it's just for people that would like to be part of that community. I just love you all. Team members, non-team members. In fact, what was great is the John Maxwell team said, let's make your talks, John, available to everybody so that they can get the advantages of adversity. So perspective number one, we've already got that one down. And it's a huge perspective. Don't miss it. Everything worthwhile, what is uphill? Number two, the second perspective is there's always an answer. There just is. There is always an answer. I have a wonderful friend, Larry Stockstill. I was casting vision to about 5,000 leaders in a conference. It was a big vision. It was about community and country transformation. In fact, I was challenging these leaders to help me literally go and teach good values in different countries. We've had incredible opportunities. We are now in 3, getting ready to go in countries 4 and 5, going in by the invitations of the president of those countries to teach transformation through what we call round tables, transformation tables, teaching values. And it's a pretty exciting opportunity. So I cast this vision. Larry Stockstill came up to me afterwards, and he looked at me and he said, John, the answer is yes. And I said, okay, Larry, good. That's good. What do you mean by yes? He said, well, the answer is yes. Whatever you need from me, whatever you want from me, the answer is yes. I'm going to give it to you because I love your vision. I love your leadership. I believe in what you're doing. The answer is yes. And then he looked at me and said, John, I live on the other side of yes. And when he made that statement, I thought, wow, I love that statement. And that's what I want for me. That's what I want for you. And what I want you to understand in this crisis time is that there's an answer. We will find a way out. We will find a way through. There's an answer. And what happens is this. Successful people know that, and unsuccessful people don't know that. If I thought that there was no answer in this crisis, to be honest with you, I'd be huddled up in the corner, and I'd be a miserable person. But there's an answer. There always has been an answer. The world has always found a way, and we're going to find a way through the coronavirus. Trust me, we're going to find a way. It may be hard. It may take a long time. It won't be easy, but we will find a way. You see, the greatest gap between successful and unsuccessful people. Okay, listen to me. This is huge. Stay with me for 9 more minutes. If you'll stay with me for 9 more minutes, my friend, I'm here to tell you, I'm just about to serve stuff that's going to make a difference for you. The greatest gap between successful and unsuccessful people is the thinking gap, how we think. I'm not talking about intellect. I'm not talking about IQ. I'm talking about successful people think differently than unsuccessful people. I'm going to give you an example right now. Successful people in every difficult situation believe there's always an answer, and people that don't do well in a crisis believe that there's not an answer. If I think that there is an answer, I'll become a victor. And if I think there is no answer, I'll become a victim. It's just that simple. My father's 98, and he's an incredible inspiration to me. He's been very successful. But he grew up in a little town in Georgetown, Ohio, about 25 miles from Cincinnati, just a very poor community. And as he was growing up, he said, all of us were poor except for 3 families, and the 3 families that were not poor, he said, I had the privilege, because he was a hardworking kid, that I would leave school and I would do errands for those 3 families. And so I got to know them all. And he said, I came to the conclusion by the time I was a junior in high school, the only difference between the 3 successful families and the rest of us is that they thought differently. And that goes back to the greatest gap is the thinking gap. So during the Depression, during a very difficult time when my father was still very young, everybody was out of work. So what did everybody do every day? They got in the bread line and they waited for some food. It was a very difficult time. But can I tell you that during that very difficult economic downturn, crisis, my father held 3 part-time jobs. And while everyone else was waiting to get bread, my father was earning money to buy bread. You say, John, what happened? How did he do it? Well, it's very simple. He thought differently. You see, he would go down to the hardware store and say, look, I know that you can't afford to hire me. It's a very difficult financial time, but I love to work, and so could I work for free for you today? And just tell me some things you'd like to have done in the store. And the owner would say, well, you got to understand, son, I can't pay you. I don't want to be paid. I want to work for free for you today. And that's what he would do all day, work for free. At the end of the day, shake his hand, say, I hope I helped you. And of course, the owner said, my gosh, I just wish I could help pay you. No, it's okay. You don't have to pay me. I just wanted to work for you. He said, by the way, if any time there is a little bit of an opening for a job, he said, would you remember me? Well, of course the owner's going to remember him. He's become unforgettable. He worked for free for a whole day. Dad would go to another store the next day, another store the next day. For a whole month, he went to a different place of employment and just worked for free. And in about 6 weeks, he started getting calls. Hey, we've got to, could you work for 8 hours a week for us? Yeah, well, sure, I can work 8 hours, and we can pay you for 8 hours. Can't pay you full time. Oh, yeah, I could. Oh, yeah, you want. He had 3 part-time jobs. Everybody else is out of work. What was the difference? Same place, same crisis, but not the same thinking. My precious friend, there is always an answer. Don't let anyone take that away from you. I will not let anyone take that away from me. There's always an answer. The third and last perspective I want to give you today, because I think this is just absolutely huge in your life and in my life and everybody's life. Not only is there always an answer, but number 3, allow adversity to help you discover who you really are. Because adversity will move us. It'll move us. And sometimes we need to be moved to find our niche, okay? Now, I'm going to give you a real corny, cute story. This is just as corny as can be, so just hang with me for a minute. But I'm talking about allowing adversity to help you to discover who you really are. It's the kid who was playing baseball just by himself in his backyard. His mom was looking out the window, and he's a typical kid throwing the ball up and then swinging the bat. And so when he saw his mom looking out, he looked at his mom and said, "Mom," I am the greatest hitter in the world. He threw the ball up and he missed the ball, and he said, "Strike one." He wasn't discouraged, picked the ball back up, threw it up the second time. Strike two. Mom's kind of look at him, he swung twice, he hadn't got a hit yet, and he said, "It's okay, Mom, I'm the greatest hitter in the world. I only need one strike. I'm the greatest hitter in the world." And this time he threw the ball up, swung as hard as he could, missed the whole ball, but he swung so hard he's now on the ground. His mom's kind of feeling a little bit bad for, quote, the greatest hitter in the world who just struck out. And she said, "Honey," she said, "I'm so sorry." He said, "Oh, no, don't be sorry, Mommy. It's okay. Listen, I've discovered something. I just struck out the greatest hitter in the world. I am the greatest pitcher in the world." I love that story. It's corny. But I give you that story because, my friend, some of us need to be moved. And when we get moved, we're going to get moved to the place where we really should be. Two quick personal examples. Most of you know that I started my career off as a pastor, had a degree in psychology, counseling. And so I did a lot of counseling for the first couple years. It was kind of expected of me, but there was a problem. The problem was I wasn't good at it. I don't have the patience. I don't have the mercy gifts. I lack all the qualities of a good counselor. And so people would come to counseling with me, but it was wearing me out and it was wearing them out. And I really wasn't that good. In fact, after about 2 years of doing something I wasn't really good at, I'll never forget. I just said, I'm not good at this. I came to the bottom, okay? I came to the bottom and said, I'm never going to be good at counseling. And so I remember to my little small country congregation, I one Sunday announced, I'm not going to be doing any more counseling. And that's when the lights all came on, because those farmers, they just started clapping. They started clapping and said, "Oh, he's finally realized he's not any good at that." And I wasn't any good at it. Now, through my not being any good and failure in counseling, within about 6 months, I began to, instead of counseling, working on the weaknesses of people, I began to focus on the strengths of people, what they did well to make them better. And immediately I found that I'm a terrible counselor, but I'm a fabulous equipper. If I wouldn't have been bad in counseling, I'd have never become an equipper. I had to get bad in something to move me to get good in something else. And for many of you, that's what this crisis is going to do. It's going to move you to higher ground. Last story. At 51, 22 years ago, I had a heart attack. And in that heart attack was literally at a Christmas Eve party with our companies. When I was battling for my life for a couple of hours there, it was pretty tough. You know you're not in good shape when they bring you in and you have one doctor, and about an hour and a half later you got 5 doctors in the room. And it wasn't going very well. I needed to have a heart cath. I was in the wrong hospital. It's a long story. I don't want to go into it. But here's what you got to catch. Here's what I don't want you to miss. Don't miss this. Okay? In this incredible crisis of my life and death crisis that I had, when I came out of it and I came through of it, it made me such a better man. You say, "Okay, John, what happened? What was that turn in your life?" The turn was very simple. I felt that my life was spared because my calling was important. And all of a sudden, it raised the stature of that calling, and it raised the stature of what I was doing. The calling got bigger, and I determined to get better. And I can say in the last 22 years of my life, they've been the best 22 years of my life. In fact, I would say the last year of my life has been the best year of my life. I'm 73, and I'm still going up. But it was that crisis. It was the fact that I came out of that and said to myself, I'm here for a purpose. I'm here for a reason. The calling is bigger. I've got to get better.
So moving on to number 8, where developing others to do it. And John talks about, that's really about sharing and teaching other people to do that, and sharing the vision with your teams in such a way that they feel like, you can't, if you're teaching it and developing others to do it, then that means they have to catch it and see it and almost climb inside and feel what you feel so that that vision is transferred. And so I'm curious for you. I mean, we talk about the 6 Types of Working Genius book. We've talked about that before. And the person who is a vision caster and helping get the team on board, if you haven't read the book, we've talked about it before on the podcast, that's a galvanizer, right? That's getting everybody on board. So I'm curious for you, Mark, are you a leader who is that one of your working geniuses? Can you clearly cast the vision? And then how does a leader who's listening in, who maybe isn't a galvanizer, isn't really one who can clearly cast the vision, how do you practice? If you've got this big dream, if you are now at step 8, how do you learn or practice clearly casting the vision?
Well, I think it's a little bit of this story I just gave you, Tracy. You got to look for ways to teach it, and you got to look for ways to teach it when you're not lecturing or when you're not condescending. And for me, I've figured out that as the parent of a 17-year-old, soon to be, my daughter is now finished with her junior year. She's not a senior yet. That's a big argument in our home. Just a sidebar. She thinks that when she's done with a junior, she's a senior. I think that on day 1 of school, after the bell rings, if she's in her seat, then now she's a senior. It's a very dysfunctional conversation, but it's one that's very close to me. So I'm going to use my podcast platform to convince my daughter, and I'm just teasing. But one of the things that I have found at this stage in Macy's life is telling her what to do or even giving her context is not working as effectively as seeing myself almost as a mentor to her. So oftentimes, I think I talked about this on a podcast a few months ago. Oftentimes now I ask Macy, what do you think should be the decision here? And what do you think the consequences of that decision would be? I've changed it a little bit. The way that you teach something, especially in the idea of a dream, what we're talking about these last 2 weeks, the way that you teach a senior level teammate is different than the way that you teach someone that's just starting with the company. You use a lot of language, a lot of stories, a lot of excitement. With leaders, you have to ask the question, hey, are you trying to discourage me? Are you trying to level set me? Or are you trying to discourage me? I'm a little bit confused here. I did not know how this leader would respond. I was pleasantly surprised. But here's what him telling me after we were leaving, what that told me. I used the right way to teach him in that story. I don't always get it right. We could talk for the rest of the day about the times I've got it wrong. But I think teaching somebody to embrace the dream, you've got the dream, you're experiencing the dream, you've got people that are fighting the dream. That's where we are right now as an organization. That's where probably a lot of you are in your leadership. You're experiencing some success. You got some few people that don't like that success, and they're coming after, they're fighting it. Well, you're going to have to find ways that will help your team, help those around you to grasp the lesson of the importance of the dream. And rather than giving you 3 steps to help people, to teach people how to catch the dream or be part of the dream with you, let me give you 1 step. Know where your people are so you can lead them to where you are. You've got to go to them before you can teach them to where you are. And too many people with the dream, they hope their passion will be contagious rather than their example. And I'm just going to tell you, your example is more contagious than your passion.
Yes, that is so good. I'm writing that down. Passion versus example. And boy, is that true. Now, it would be wonderful if you have passion as you are living out your example.
Absolutely.
Let me just say that if you are just drudging along, giving your example, that's not really all that contagious.
Absolutely.
But I just think of when you're casting a vision, is it visual? Is it you're painting a picture for them of this is where we're going when you're painting the dream and teaching them the brand new vision. And what I'm hearing you say is it's different for new team members versus old team members when you are casting a vision. it's different. It's not the same. It's not a one size fits all for your team. So it's knowing your team members is really important. And I've seen that in leadership, to be totally honest. I have been on the receiving end of people, of a leader casting a vision and just really missing the pulse because they didn't do a good job casting the vision or connecting with the people. So when they went to cast the vision, they didn't know what language to use to meet the people they were sharing it with because there was such a disconnect in relationship. Right. So what does it all come back to? Relationship. That's a big, important piece. If you're going to move forward with someone, with a team of people, in order to put this dream into play with a team of people, you need to know your people, whether they're newbies or they've been with you for years and years and years.
John gave me on that point. John gave me a point to use with some of my leadership a few weeks ago. He said, Mark, I want you to go talk to your leaders and I want you to say this, or he recommended it. He didn't say, I want you to do it. He recommended it. He said, and I tried this, tell me where you are so that I can lead you where I need you to go. Now, it was on a particular subject. We were wrestling with it, and there was this huge disconnect. What was interesting is two things happened with that statement. One is I gave them a chance to show me, let me hear, let it be revealed where they were. That's always a good thing as a leader, know where your people are. But number two, it let them know very clearly we're not on the same page. Mm-hmm. And John was using the point that as leaders, sometimes we're the umpire. We call the balls and strikes. And there's half the crowd that's watching the game that disagrees with the call. It was too close to the strike zone for it to be a ball. And there's a bunch of people watching that's a fan of the batting team that says, man, that was a close call, but that umpire got it right. That was a ball. Mm-hmm. It's that borderline call. And yet at the end of the day, who make the call? The referee. Not the batter, not the pitcher, not the fans, not whatever fan side of the fans you are. The umpire had to make a call. In leadership, sometimes you have to call the balls and strikes. Mm-hmm. Well, what I did with that question that said, hey, tell me where you are, where I can get you where I need you to be. I gave them a chance to say, hey, how do you see this situation? What are you seeing? But by the way, you're seeing it differently than me. And I got to get you to where I am, not stay where you are. Mm-hmm. So it was a statement to let someone reveal where they are. It was a statement that said, we're not on the same page. But here's the third thing. It was a statement that says, you need to get to where I am because I'm the guy that's calling the balls and strikes here.
Yeah.
Not in an egotistical way. Just somebody's got to call the balls and strikes. And this particular day, it's my turn.
If we can teach you how to lead at Zifra and we can get you up to a 7 or an 8, if you're an 8, what do you track some 8s? You see, the better leader you are, the better people you attract. The higher you go, the more you attract people that have already gone high. The more successful you are, the more that you attract successful people. This is huge. People want to be on a winning team. They want to be with somebody that's successful. So when you're successful, you begin to bring around and attract to yourself really successful people. Number 3, take action. This is what I call action attraction. In other words, there's something about when somebody is moving forward that it's that movement that people say, oh, she's going somewhere. He's going somewhere. Where are they going? I wonder if I could go with them. I wonder if I could join their team. You see, what leaders do is they not only know the way, they show the way. In other words, they basically look at the people around them and say, I'm going to climb this mountain. Do you want to climb this mountain with me? I'm going to be successful in Zifra. Do you want to be successful with me? I'm going to go to the top. Do you want to go to the top? And it's that action that really makes the difference in people's lives. Again, nobody ever joined a person that just had good intentions. They only join somebody that has good actions. So the moment you start taking action on a situation, you begin to attract those people to you. Now, what are we doing? We're talking about how do you attract leaders to your organization. Number 1, love what you do. That gives you passion. Number 2, be successful. That draws the best people to you. Number 3, take action. Now all of a sudden you're creating movement. Number 4, have a big vision. You see, the size of the vision that you have determines the size of the person that you attract. If you have a small vision, you attract small people. If you have an average vision, you attract average people. If you have a big vision, you attract big people. I know this because for 50 plus years I've been leading. Many years ago, I gave a vision that was just amazing. I looked at a small group of leaders and said, let's train 1 million leaders around the world. Now, when I gave that vision, there were only about, maybe 1,000, 1,200 people that were following me in this vision of training leaders. Just a handful of people. But the moment that I gave them what I called the million leader mandate, it brought the best out of people. Let me say this. When you get a big vision for people, it draws the bigness out of them. When you give the best vision, it draws the best out of people. And immediately they said, let's do it. And literally, hang on, in 7 years, we had trained 1 million people around the world. And then I said, let's train people in every country. And the vision got big again. And in another 7 years, we had literally trained 5 million people in every country of the world. What was it? A big vision. It draws big people. And finally, if you really want to attract great leaders to your organization, you need to lift your leadership lid. And what I mean by that is very simple. You need to become a better leader. The reason I teach leadership around the world and have for so many years is because when I was in my 20s, I became totally convinced that everything rises and falls on leadership. I was so convinced of it, I said, that's my calling. Here's the good news. 50 years later, I am more convinced of that truth than I was when I started. It's a beautiful thing to give your life to something that you know to be true. 50 years later, I am telling you again as your friend, everything rises and falls on leadership. So if you become a better leader, if you have a bigger vision, if you take action, if you yourself are successful, and if you love what you do, guess what? You'll attract a lot of good leaders to your organization. And that's what I want for you. Hi, John Maxwell here today. Welcome to Minute with Maxwell. A person that has greatly influenced my life was Bill Bright. For many, many years, he was the founder, CEO, leader of Campus Crusade. And he has now passed on. But I spent many good days with him. And the word that I want to use on Minute with Maxwell in regards to Bill Bright is the word vision. For 25 years, I was a pastor. I lived in San Diego some of those years. And at that time, Campus Crusade for Christ headquarters was up in Arrowhead Springs, about 2 hours north of San Diego. And Bill Bright became a mentor to me, a great influencer in my life. And we were, as a pastor, we were going through a major relocation, about $45 million. And I was working hard, and I just got a little tired. And so I called and asked if I could come up and spend some time with him. He said, certainly. So I went up, and we sat for a couple of hours that morning, and I shared with him the load I was carrying and the $45 million building project. And he was just listened, so kind. And when we were done, he prayed with me and said, let's have lunch. We had lunch. When we were done, he said, John, he said, do you have another hour? I want to show you a project I'm working on. I said, of course. And we sat down that day, and he showed me the Jesus film. Now, this was before it became a worldwide evangelism phenomena. Literally, it was just being birthed, and they were just getting ready to launch this incredible project. And he shared with me, he said, John, I'm going to be able to share faith with the whole world. And I'll never forget, at that moment I realized how big his vision was. And my $45 million building project was so small compared to him. Now, let me just say something about big people. When you're with big people, they make you feel bigger. I never felt small with Bill Bright, even though his vision was much, much bigger than my vision. because he loved me and he believed in me. But that 2-hour drive from Arrowhead Springs to San Diego that day, trust me, I realized that I had been again one more time influenced by a person that saw more than I saw, and they saw before I saw. Wow. I will always be indebted for the man who taught me how to think bigger than I never thought before. Bill Bright was his name. Vision is what he taught me. And I'm glad today you're with me on Minute with Maxwell.
Thought number 4 that'll take you to the top. Success lies in forming the habit of doing things that failures don't like to do. That is a fact. Let me repeat it. Success lies in forming the habit of doing things that failures don't like to do. In other words, one of the greatest differences between successful people and unsuccessful people is in their habits. That's why I have in your notes, when you do the things that you ought to do when you ought to do them, the day will come when you will do the things that you want to do when you want to do them. I have a statement that I make many times in leadership conferences. The secret of your success is discovered in your daily agenda. You can go to the bank on that. 2 more thoughts. Thought number 5, what lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us. Emerson said, what lies behind you, what lies before you are tiny matters compared to what lies within you. So the question is not what big problem do you have in your life, what big issue do you have to solve in your life. The question is, what have you got on the inside? 2 thoughts. Roberta Flack was exactly right when she said the situation you live in doesn't have to live in you. 2nd thought. Maintaining the right attitude is easier than regaining. Just keep your maintenance of your attitude up, because if you lose it, it's hard to get it back. Isn't that true? Haven't we all lost it? Your attitude is so key, and here's why. An attitude is an outward expression of an inward feeling. That's what an attitude is. I wrote a book in 1986 called The Winning Attitude. You can tell a person whether they have a bad attitude or good attitude sometimes without them ever talking to you. Isn't that true? You know what your attitude is? Your attitude always goes before you. Let's review, because the 6th thought is a very important one. I want to get to it in a moment. Number 1, it's what you learn after you know it all that counts. Number 2, don't let anyone steal your dream. Number 3, you can spend your life any way you want, but you can only spend it once. Number 4, success lies in forming the habit of doing things that failures don't like to do. 5, what lies behind us and what lies before us are tiny matters compared to what lies within us. Thought number 6, your greatest achievements are those that benefit others. That's why Henry Van Dyke said, there is a loftier ambition than merely to stand high in the world. It is to stoop down and lift mankind a little higher. It is true, the greatest achievements you and I will ever have are those that benefit others. The other day I was at lunch. People were talking about significance and they were talking about success. And all of a sudden it just came to my heart and mind. I mean, I knew that I had the difference, and for the first time clearly articulated. I said, success comes when we add value to ourselves. But significant comes when we add value to others. You see, both of them add value, but one is singular and the other is plural. One is inward, the other is outward. And I think that statement that I've made, that the greatest achievements that we're ever going to have are those that benefit others, is a true statement. The Ecclesiastes writer said, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for their work. If one falls down, his friend can help him up, but pity the man who falls, who has no one to help him up. J.A. Holmes said, it is well to remember that the entire population of the universe, with one trifling exception, is composed of others. So what do I believe about teamwork, and what do I believe about partnerships? Number 1, leaders lead for the benefit of others. That's why you lead. If you're a leader, you lead for the benefit of others. You lead to add value to their life. The quote, true leadership must be for the benefit of the followers, not for the enrichment of the leaders. Anytime the benefit is for the leaders more than the leaders are now beginning to manipulate their followers. Number 2, partnership purifies our motives. When we partner with somebody else to give them the credit, it purifies why we're in that business. John Bunyan said, "You have not lived today until you have done something for someone who can never repay you." I promise you, that will purify your motive. Number 3, proximity is not necessarily unity. Billy Graham said, "Our world has become a neighborhood without becoming a brotherhood." Number 4, my highest value is the value I bring to others. 2 quotes, one by Red Auerbach, who for many, many years, general manager of very successful Boston Celtics. He said, "One person seeking glory doesn't accomplish much. Everything we've done has been the result of people working together to meet our common goals." Bill Russell, who for many years was the anchor on the Boston Celtics team, said, "The most important measurement of how good a game I played was how much better I made my teammates play." Isn't that a great way to look at yourself? Thought number 5 in the area of teamwork and partnership. Great achievements are a result of teamwork and partnerships. Woodrow Wilson, past president of the United States, said, "We should not only use all the brains we have, but all that we can borrow." Lyndon Johnson, another past president, said, "There are no problems we cannot solve together and very few that we can solve by ourselves." One more thought, number 6. Lasting achievements are a result of teamwork, or they're a result of partnerships. Harvey Firestone said, "It's only as we develop others that we permanently succeed." I love that quote. And Andrew Carnegie on his tombstone has this written, "Here lies a man who knew how to enlist the service of better men than himself." I have committed my life to partnership. I've committed my life to teamwork. Everything I do now has value for others. In other words, there's a multiplication whenever we team up. We're here to complete one another, not compete with one another. We're here to add value. It is true, we are our brother's keeper. Pour your life into others and add value to them. Come not to be served, but to serve.
Welcome to the Maxwell Leadership Executive Podcast, where our goal is to help you increase your reputation as a leader, increase your ability to influence others, and increase your ability to fully engage your team to deliver remarkable results.